Kick Ninja, the most advanced kick drum synth out there, just got an update and it's got all the features you were dreaming of. Hi, what's up? I'm Jay, also known as the Him, and if you're new here, I'm a dance music producer and DJ, and I released the kick drum synthesizer that I always dreamt of having, Kick Ninja, just over a week ago, and now I've got a brand new update with all the features you guys were asking for. Let's dive right in. First of all, I want to show you the selectable pitch points. Now you can select any point you want and make that pitch trackable. So at a normal sound that would end in a pitch on the keyboard, like this 808, this point is controlled by the keyboard, but now you can also choose any other point and make that also controllable by the keyboard. Make sure you select a point, turn pitch tracking on, and turn it on for the oscillator layer. This can be super useful in case you want to have some pitch modulation before or after the pitch tracked point. For example, there's one tonal kick drum that I really liked that has a little slide, a little pitch down, kind of like a tape stop at the end. Actually, these two points should be tracked by the keyboard. Select these points, right click them, turn them pitch tracked on, make sure pitch tracking is enabled for the oscillator, and now you'll have the pitch for the keyboard here in the middle, and after that it'll still have that little slide down to give it that extra power. The next thing I want to show you is the automatic phase locking feature. This is a feature that I got tons of requests for, and it's really awesome. Say for example you've made this really nice sounding side trance kick, and you actually want to go from this kick straight into the bass line. It ends on a zero crossing. But now you want to change something at the front of your kick. That messes up the ending. Now you can select any pitch point, turn on phase locking. After that, the changes won't take effect. So this way you can always know that the tail of your kick stays the same. Probably have a little fade out here at the end. And again, this way you can edit whatever you like before the locked point. And then after that you can blend straight into your bass sound with zero phase issues. Okay, up next, I've improved the import feature a lot and added some new ways of doing it. Let's initialize the preset and take a kick drum, some interesting high-end energy as well. This one, you can hear a little hi-hat. What I like to do is put the kick that I'm about to import on sampler 3 and turn it off so you can't actually hear it, but then I can compare later how they sound. After you've dragged the sample into Kick Ninja, you can also just drag it again from here and then drag it anywhere else again. So I'm now currently dragging the same sample into the oscillator, and now we've got some new settings. The low pass frequency works the same as before, but we've got a couple more settings here. The attack one you know from version 1, which puts a little bit of the attack on a sampler, but the perfect full will actually import the kick to the oscillator, flip the phase around, and negate that from the original sample and export that to a sampler layer. The cool thing is that you end up with a kick that's exactly the same as the original sample. So you can't even really tell the difference anymore. And that's because everything that's not in the oscillator is now put into this sampler layer. And this is actually saved to disk. This allows for perfect recreation of any kick drum. And then you can leave the top layer as is. You could filter that more. You could correct the bottom layer. I'd probably remove some of these points by simplifying the envelope a little bit. 0.5 is usually a pretty good setting. And then you still have the attack of the original kick and a little bit of high end that's on top. Another way of doing this now is kind of similar but slightly different. Is by dragging the kick over and then selecting filter. This will do a similar thing for the oscillator, but then put the original sample on sampler 1 and draw in a little bit of filter automation. And this leaves you actually with even more control over what part of the original sound you want to leave in. So currently it's filtering out everything below 600 Hertz because that was what we selected as our cutoff. And then it goes up even more, so we only leave the high end. And you could like do this whichever way you want. If you wanted to have more of the low harmonics in as well, you could dial those right back in. But for something like this where you just want the hi-hat and the initial attack, something like this could probably make sense. Gives you a lot of control. If you want to go really crazy, you now also have the option of editing your kick first inside of a sampler. You could take the kick inside the sampler, apply low passing on it. And this makes more sense if you're taking a kick from a full track. export this to the oscillator as well. In a similar way, also allowing you to select any of the modes I showed you before. And then you will have even more sculpting abilities. You could even repitch the kick before you import it if you wanted to. Next up, we've got some new effects. We've got 6 new distortion effects. We have an extra distortion layer as well. Layer 1 and layer 2 are identical, and in between layer 1 and layer 2 there's now a filter, a low pass and high pass filter with envelopes that can also be automated. The effects are from like smooth tape distortion, but also really crazy folding effects. And because there's now 2 layers with the filter in between, you have even more control over how you want it to sound. So you could start off with something really crazy and then tone that down again with the filter, and then have something more smooth after that. Last but not least, one feature that's also really handy for when you're sculpting your kick drums is the ability to look at the time scale in a logarithmic fashion. You can turn on skew right here, and that will stretch the time scale, giving you more precision over the attack phase of the kick and less as the time goes on. And you can actually scale the amount of this by dragging this factor. So the lower this goes, the more close you are to a linear time scale, and the higher it goes, the more exaggerated the log time scale goes. This gives you a lot of space to, again, tweak your attack section of the kick, which is quite influential to how the kick drum eventually sounds, and gives you less precision at the end, where you generally have a little bit less points. It's handy to switch back and forth because some changes, like the pitch, you might want to do in the logarithmic scale, whereas other changes, for example on the amp, you might actually want to see the exact point you're editing in the kick drum. So that's it. Go check it out on dsp.thehim.com and let me know what you think. Bye!